I'm going to take you into the second image in this series, which describes a car crash. Now, this is nothing really to do with a physical car crash, even though that's what we're taking a picture of. It's really symbolic for the end of my relationship. It's when things came crashing down and when the new beginning started. One of my favorite figures in symbology is Ganesh. He's the elephant. I'm sure you've seen him in Hindu symbology. And he's the destroyer. And he's a positive guy. He doesn't destroy. He takes away the old and gives birth to the new. And that's really what this picture is. They're going to have this car crash down into a river. Now, this will be the most complex of the pictures that we're going to do retouching wise, because the car is not going to be in the water. We're going to shoot that separately. It's two pieces. We're going to go to the river and try to craft an emotion that is deep, because this will be the heaviest of the pictures emotionally, truly. So it will be set down, pushed back, darker. It will be green in tonality. We're going to go to this beautiful river that sits between mossy trees that falls into the water. So it'll be beautiful for where this car crash is going to happen. When it comes to color, as we described for the first image in the series, we're going to use color here too. We have a green forest green background. We have gotten a car that's a bluish teal color that will sit beautifully within that green tone of the trees and forest. And then try to contrast that with the clothing of the girl that we're going to put on the car for one version of it, and then walking through the water for another. Again, the mood is set by color, the mood is set by context, and obviously crashing a car has tons of connotations when it comes to the mood of it. So we just got to follow that. If you want to have a car crash, you got to go with that emotion. If you have an emotional breakup, you got to go with that emotion, and that's what we're going to try to create. So the process starts again with putting pictures to the ideas and thoughts that I have. So in this case, a very simple mood board, only 2 pictures. By Merton Marcus, extraordinary fashion photographers. Their aesthetic skews a little dark and obviously to the fashion side, more so than me, which is innately more romantic than they are. So they're only here as a reference for the denseness and mystery of this, and also a little bit to the light quality that we like to bring to it. When it comes to the light quality and the color palette, I want to have a car there that matched with this. So we have an older car. There's no bigger meaning to this car being old, but for me liking the aesthetic of that. Again, if you think about all the things that you're drawn to, if you pull some references of cars, you would just instinctively pull up some cars that speaks to you. And for me, that's an older generation vehicles. This picture would never be the same for me if it was a brand new Fiat or, you know, some Mini Cooper or something sitting in here. For me, it's an older car that has some design to it. And I picked it a lot because of the color. The color of the car matches the color of the background and the mood we want to set. So the last part to this image is obviously the model. Now, I could tell this story in a lot of different ways, and I want you to be conscious of this as well. I could just have the car in there, with smoke coming out of the hood, and that would be it. It would just as beautifully describe this, but I want to add a human element to it. I want to have someone that could tell my story. Now, I don't want it to be me either, or a guy reminiscent of me. I want to have someone that could remind me of the relationship that I have. So I'm choosing to photograph a beautiful girl, giving the story a fashion sense. And that's the last sort of element to this photograph. So we're going to go through the practicalities of making a picture like this happen. Obviously, it starts with finding a location that has the river, that has the space for this event to take place. So I worked with location scouts that has gone out and given me some idea what exists out there. We then will go and do a technical scout so that we go out there with the crew so we know where the sun comes up, again, where it goes down, what the atmosphere is when we get there, pick our angle. That's the first step. Second step will be to get a permit for this place. Location scouts, when they go out, they usually will give you a reference of saying, this is private land, here's the contact info, this is park land, contact these people. So then we call up the park service and we say, hey, we would love to come and shoot at your park. This is so many people, this is the crew size, and this is what we want to do there. For us, they said no smoke machine. They were also curious about the crew size. We're going to walk down to the river's edge. They didn't want too many people down there. So there's some limitations for us when we get to the location, but we're going to work with that. And maybe we get a ranger that's pretty nice to us and let us fire up the smoke machine anyway. I think it's quite important to create that mood when we get down in there, to have some smoke coming between the trees as if it was the car smoking, or just having some atmosphere. So we're going to work on getting that in there. So that's the first part. We found the location, we got our permit, and that part's taken care of. The second part obviously is to get the car in there. And as mentioned, we can't just crash a car into this river in the park, so we'll do that in a separate piece. It's fairly easy to find vehicles like this in California because it's so set up for movie production. You can do some Google searches and you'll find tons of cars. For you, if you're in the secondary market, just go to a used car shop, find a car you like. I'm sure they will be willing to help you out. One thing that's important for me in this is that the car get lifted up in the back end so that we get a little bit of gravity on the front wheels. For the car to just sit there and us turning it in Photoshop will not allow it to feel like it's tilted forward, sitting downhill into a river. So we have talked to these guys. They said they will jack up the back for us and we will get that sense of gravity. It would also help when we have a model sitting on the hood of the car. That's one of the things I'm thinking of, that she too get that sense of gravity coming, leaning back on the car. So that's the second element for us. Another important element to this, as other pictures, is the crew. Coming with us to both locations is hair and makeup and styling. We have 3 assistants to help out. It's important to think about this stuff. I could go somewhere and shoot a landscape on my own. I could go and shoot a landscape with one person, but coming into a river like this where I want to create a really muted palette and atmosphere, we've gotten some extra hands. The reason for these extra hands on set for this particular shot is the mood that I decided to create. We're going to start early in the morning and we're going to shoot before the sun comes up the background plate, but that's a little too dark, right, for having a woman walking through the water. So when the sun comes a little higher, we'll start shooting the model. Now, we don't want sun on her. I don't want this to feel like a sunny, beautiful walk, you know, along this river. This needs to feel mystical and a little gritty, and it's obviously emotional when someone has crashed and they come walking through the water. Maybe the dress is a little wet and there's a grittiness to it. So if we're there and the sun comes up, I want to fly these big silks up that will cut the sun away and put her into shadow. That will allow me to shoot the background plate early on and then continue shooting the model even if the sun has come up. Because I can always cut the model out, put her into its own native landscape. It won't really be a composite there, it's just sort of blending the two together. Shadow shot from early in the morning, her in shadow in the same place, and we blend the two. Obviously we'll talk about this when we get to location and I explain that further, but we need to be prepared for the light qualities that will happen, and that's why we're going to have a few extra people for this particular shot. There's a few other elements that's just details to this, but it's important to think of. We're going to put a car into water, and I can't bring water to the car, not at the levels that I want it. So what we've done is to get a car door, similar color to this, so I could stick this car door into the water. So then when the water hits metal and you get sort of that bubbly resistance of the water, I could photograph this and in post apply that on top of the car. So I get those transitions between what's in the background and what's in the foreground. The car won't have water rushing against it, but this car door will have it. And then I can multiply that metal along the edge of the car and it will feel seamless when I compose these together. We might have a car wheel there as well, so we get wet rubber coming up against it. Again, that water pushing, bending around it. Those little elements are what's going to make this composite real. So I'm thinking about that up front, making sure that I capture this on the location. Small little thing maybe, but when you go to a river, don't show up in your small little jogging shoes. We're going to bring waders. That will allow me to stand in the middle of the river if I want to, if that's my picture. It will allow me to stand with water up to here and still be able to capture the pieces that I need to. So those are the small things I think about when I head out to a location like this. The very last thing is equipment. We will bring strobes in this. It will be subtle. I like to have a natural sort of muted palette, but maybe we'll have a kicker to highlight the person again. I like the atmosphere that's been created in these. It's a little too heavy for me on the strobe, so ours will be a little bit more subtle, but I plan on using a light or two to highlight the person in this. The camera will be a Canon. Now, I mentioned, you know, for the first picture that we would maybe use the Contax because it's quieter. Here, if I'm going to have a woman walking through the water and there's water dripping and stuff, the medium format cameras just get too slow. I want to be able to shoot a lot faster, also using higher ISO. So my appropriate tool for this will be a Canon 5D, which is my preference for the 35mm systems. So I think that sets us up for all the things that we need to make this a successful shoot. We got the car, we got the location, we got the model, we got the crew. I think we thought about everything to be well prepared to head out and create a beautiful picture.